Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Let's Debrief podcast. I'm Jenna, and it's just me today because, unfortunately, Ashley and I have had a bit of a falling out, and yeah, I've decided to proceed with the podcast alone. And yeah, it's been really hard, but I hope you guys will stick around. Anyways, that was a joke. Ashley and I are completely fine. We are traveling a bunch in the next 2 weeks. So she's been in Florida for like a week and a half. I swear it's been like a month though. And I'm going to North Carolina next week, and we won't see each other in between. So we decided that we're each going to do a solo episode. And so obviously this is my first time recording by myself, and I hope I don't look awkward on the screen because I'm looking right into the lens, but I'm like, is that weird? Also, I would like to preface it by saying that I am recording in our shed, which my husband has created into an office, which is super cool. But unfortunately, I have to record with the door open because it's not bright enough with the door closed. So anyways, if you hear like a car passing by or something, that's that. Anyways. Welcome to the podcast. If you're new, I'm Jenna. Usually I have my co-host Ashley, but today it's just me. You guys are in for a treat. So I actually have been really wanting to do a solo episode only because I have so many random stories that I have a list of them that I've been like, oh, I want to tell that on the podcast. That's funny. But I never have. Okay, there's a truck passing. I never have the opportunity to tell it because it's not something that you can just work into any conversation. So I have a bunch of random stories that I'm going to tell. Just things that have happened to me that I just think are funny or weird or interesting. And yeah, so that's going to be the bulk of the episode. Some people also asked some questions on Instagram that I'll answer. But first, okay, so I listened to this other podcast called The Bad Broadcast. Maddie, the host, she does it by herself. And I love that podcast so much. It's so entertaining. And if you don't listen to her, The Bad Broadcast, so good. But she always does this segment called Things I'm Loving, Things I'm Hating. So I kind of wanted to do something similar to that. So this first part is going to be things I'm loving / random things I've been thinking about lately and pondering. Okay. So here we go. I have this written down because I've been compiling this list for a long time. So, okay. Things I'm loving. Here's number 1. And this might be controversial. I've been loving hand washing my dishes. When I was younger, not as a kid, but when I first moved out of my parents' house, I didn't have a dishwasher for 5 years. And I swear that I was when I get a dishwasher, I will never hand wash a dish again. It was my least favorite thing on earth. But I have a dishwasher now. But for those of you who don't know, I'm a mom and I am exclusively pumping. So that means I only pump my breast milk and give it to my baby. She doesn't feed directly off of me anymore. And so that means a lot of washing your pump parts, a lot of washing bottles, a lot of washing things in general. And so I have to wash those in the first place. And so whenever I do that, I just have started incorporating a little bit more each day. And I'm oh, I'll wash my cups. Oh, I'll wash my plates. It's just I don't know why. It just feels therapeutic after I get the baby down for bed. I'm just oh, it's washing time. And if you don't have a dishwasher and you're maybe struggling to romanticize your dishwashing, this, I swear, is what changed the game, is getting a soap that smells really good, number one. And I also got one that's like in a little spray bottle, so it just feels like so fun to just like do a little spray. And then I got like a ton of special brushes for washing. So mainly I use the bottle brush for like obviously bottles and cups, and then I have like a little mini one, and it just feels fun. So anyways, that's been the first thing that I'm loving. Second thing that I'm loving, rotisserie chickens. Okay, I don't know why I haven't thought of this earlier. Honestly, it's probably because I was living in a cage of everything I do has to be the most organic, most healthiest, most crunchy thing possible. And I've been freed of that conviction. I still am, I would consider myself a crunchy, holistic person, but since becoming a mom, I've realized that sometimes like that's just not 100% realistic, and I have to let go of like the anxiety that brought me. So anyways, I've loosened up a bit on that front, and I have been loving getting a rotisserie chicken. And you know, here's the process. You get the chicken, and then you get like your Tupperware, come home, and you just pull. People probably have been doing this forever, and I have heard people talk about it before, but just pull the pieces of the chicken off, put it in the Tupperware, and I just pull like big chunks of it, and it's like the perfect pre-prepared chicken. And you don't have to worry about it like being weird. I know people have chicken anxiety. And like I'll just season it like taco seasoning, whatever, and it's just ready to go. Tanner loves like a chicken bacon ranch wrap, so I'll make that with it. It's great. Also, Monty loves chicken now too, so that has been so nice for my life. Third thing I'm loving, little baskets at weddings. Here's the thing. I know you all know what I'm talking about if you're a girl. When you go to a wedding and they have like this pre-made basket of like little things for you to use. And it usually has like a little note that says like, from the bride and groom to help you feel fresh or whatever. And there's like floss, dry shampoo, hairspray, gum, Tic Tacs, little hairbrushes, tons of little fun things are in this basket. And I swear, hair ties. No one ever uses them. Bobby pins. Things that like you always like need and you just don't remember to buy because it's like not a big enough deal to buy them. And it's like the best thing ever. And here's the thing. Sorry, there's a car driving outside. Here's the thing. No one ever takes advantage of these baskets. So as you know, I'm a wedding photographer. And the thing that I'm loving lately is like end of the night, I go to the basket, I see what's left, and I take things. The bride and groom are taking them home. It's not like I'm stealing their flower arrangements or something. It's just these little things, and no one's taking them. I'm going to take a pack of gum. I took a thing of dry shampoo, a mini travel dry shampoo. I'm going to take some hair ties. I'm going to take some bobby pins. It's the best I just love it. Take advantage of the little baskets at weddings. Ooh, sometimes they have mini like deodorants, which this is one thing I am crunchy about is the deodorant. But like if you're not, take some deodorant. It's just a great little vibe. Okay. Done with things I'm loving. Now I'm going to go into some thoughts I'm having. Oh, wait. Sorry. Going back to things I'm loving. As I previously mentioned, I have been freed from my crunchy cage that I was living in. And I have been introduced to something the opposite of crunchy, and I'm obsessed. And here's the thing. Growing up, my parents were not crunchy at all, but they were definitely like healthy. Like they did like what you were supposed to do in terms of like health. So like they definitely didn't like do their own research, but like when it said on the news like fat is bad, don't eat fat, then we weren't allowed to eat things with fat. And then whenever it was like, oh, you should use vegetable oil, they were like, we're using vegetable oil. When they were like, oh, you should not use real butter, they were like, okay, we're not using real butter. So drinking soda was not a thing in our house. So I've never really been into soda, nor have I really tried many sodas. If I'm going to get like a sweet drink, you guys know about special drinks here. If I'm going to get like a sweet drink, I'm going to get like a sweet tea or a coffee. But recently I was introduced to something called Dr. Pepper. And here's the thing. I knew that people were addicted to a Dr. Pepper, and I was always just like, cringe. Soda's bad for you. And I'll admit that I've been a judgy person in the past. This goes along with my crunchy thing. I've been a judgy person as a person and as a mom and as a pregnant person. I've judged many people, and I've been humbled, and I no longer judge unless you're, really going off the deep end. But here's the thing. I was introduced to Dr. Pepper. It's the best thing I've ever tasted. So, yeah, if, again, this is not a daily thing. I would love to have a Dr. Pepper every day, but I won't. But I am loving having a Dr. Pepper here and there. Especially, you guys know I have my nugget ice machine. Get a can of Dr. Pepper, pour it over the nugget ice in a Stanley. There's nothing like it. One more thing. This is more of a cry for help. I've never had any feelings of addiction before until this substance entered my life. And it really is not my fault. My husband Tanner's best friend Daniel, he introduced me to this gum. It's the Mentos Spearmint gum, the green one. One day he was just like, hey, you guys want some gum? I was like, sure. We were going to Lowe's. Him and Tanner were going to put up some drywall. He's like, hey, you guys want this gum? I'm like, sure. So I had a piece or two of the gum. We go into Lowe's. Immediately as I feel the crunch that happened when I bit into the Mentos gum, my mouth's watering right now. I was like, I need more. So I said, I forgot something in the car. So I go back out to Daniel's, and I said, Daniel, can I have the keys? I go out to Daniel's truck. I stick my hand deep in the bag of the Mentos gum. I pull out like 5 pieces, stick them in my pocket, and I'm like, okay, we're good. It's just like, it's a new flavor. I'm just really liking the texture. I'm just really liking it. We get back to our house. Daniel and Tanner are inside working. What do? I go back out to his truck. Open the door. I see the gum in the passenger door. I'm like, I gotta get more. So stick my hand back in the bag. Get like 10 pieces this time. Ever since that day in about October last year, I've had an extreme problem with the Mentos gum. And here's the thing. I never thought I would admit this publicly because it's so embarrassing that this gum has such a hold on me. But like I was telling Tanner, I was like, if I'm driving somewhere without you, I will purposefully go and get a pack of the gum before I start the drive so that I can chew the gum and then finish the whole pack by the time I get back and you'll never know that I did it because I'm so embarrassed of how much I chew. It's really the serotonin is released when I bite into it, and then like after 2 minutes it's done. So I just want to keep popping them, get the bite, the crunch when you bite into it, then just throw it out the window and then get another piece. Side note, is it wrong to throw your gum out the window? Like, obviously it's not like on someone's front doorstep, but like if I'm on the turnpike, is that wrong? I think not. Anyways, let me know if you guys know about the Mentos gum, if you want to try the Mentos gum. Oh, I dressed up as the Mentos gum for Halloween, actually. So, yeah, I have a problem with it. It's very bad. I need help. Okay. Now I'm going to go into some thoughts. I only have 2 thoughts that I would like to share. 1, this is something I've been thinking about for years. Why does all trash smell the same? It smells like trash. You think about it right now. You know what trash smells like. You know the smell of garbage. Why is it that I could throw away in my kitchen, I could throw away a cardboard box, a old yogurt container, a piece of cheese, and a can of pasta sauce. Okay, I take it outside, it's sitting in the trash can. Then in another bag, I throw away some tissues. I throw away some chicken. I throw away a milk carton. Somehow, after those 2 separate bags have been sitting outside, they both smell the same, like trash. What's the smell? What is it? Why does all trash smell the same? I'll never get it. Second thought. Why is it so important that we eat different foods for different meals? I feel like this is something that people have debated before. You know, why does breakfast have to be breakfast? But I've just been thinking about it a lot lately since I've been feeding my child solids. Why does it matter if I give her chicken for breakfast? Actually, I've been thinking a lot about things like existential things, societal things since having a baby, because I'm like, you're a blank slate. And I can tell you anything. I can mold you into anything. And whatever I say for a period of time is what you'll believe until you have the ability to go out and discover your own things. And so if I tell you, or don't tell you, if I just give you chicken for breakfast, will you then think that chicken is a breakfast food? Or will you just think any food can be eaten at any time and it's fine? I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and similar things, you know, on the same line of like, I have this power and this responsibility to teach this human what is going to shape their lives. And it's just crazy. I think about like parents who tell their kids like funny like lies a lot. And I think about like the things that my parents told me. Like I remember a big one was that you would get pulled over if you had like the lights, like the overhead lights on in the car while you were driving at night. And obviously they just didn't want us to have the overhead lights on because it was annoying to them. But they said, you know, you would get pulled over. And I believed it. And it's like such a little thing, but it's like they probably just came up with it in the moment. Like, oh, you can't do that. You'll get in trouble. But then forever, like I found out like 5 years ago that wasn't illegal. And it's just like little things like that I think about so much. I'm like, well, what am I going to say? Or what if I do say something and don't even think about it and it like stays with her for the end of time? Being a parent is crazy. Okay. Now we're going to get into the bulk of the episode, which is which is these random stories that I want to tell. I'm not exactly sure what order I should go in, so I'm just going to just start telling the stories. I hope these are entertaining for you guys. I hope they are, I hope it's just a fun, easy listen. I hope you're driving somewhere far away and this keeps your mind entertained. I'll try not to go into too much detail with each of them so that they don't take too long. We're going to speed run. Okay. Number 1. Since we were on the topic of weddings, I'm going to start with that one. And I'm going to check it off so I remember that I told that one. Okay. So this is at a wedding in October, actually. This is actually a wedding where I was really impressed with their little basket in the bathroom. So we're at this wedding, and I was about 2 weeks out from my due date. And so, my stomach is really big, and I was wearing like these black kind of legging-ish pants and then just like a sweater. And we're shooting the reception, and there's a bunch of men. The bride and groom were a little bit older. They were probably like late 30s, maybe pushing 40. And, we're just hanging out, and Peter's my second shooter. And one of the groomsmen comes up to me. Like I said, they're like late 30s, early 40s. And everybody had been drinking for a little at this point, and he just comes up to me and just bends down, puts his lips right on my belly, kisses it. And he's like, "This is a blessing. Like, congratulations," or whatever. And I was like very taken aback because I never really minded when people would touch my belly when I was pregnant, but I was not expecting someone to kiss it, especially someone I didn't know, and especially a man. And so he's like, I think he kind of like saw that I was like taken aback, and I'm not a very confrontational person, so of course I didn't say anything, but he just was like, "It's okay, I'm a dad." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And it was just so shocking, so shocking to me that someone kissed my belly. And I kind of loved it. Like, it's kind of legendary move on that guy's part. But some people would probably get pretty bent out of shape about that scenario. People don't like whenever they touch. People don't like their bellies being touched when they're pregnant. So if you don't know that about people and you see someone who's pregnant or know someone who's pregnant, just don't touch their belly. Unless it's me, you can touch my belly. I love it. Okay. Here we go. Okay. This is something I've been wanting to share on the podcast for so long because I'm just so interested to hear. I guess I don't really need feedback or your opinion on it because I already know the general consensus. But this is something that has been going on for my entire life, which is people thinking that I am apparently 10 to 15 years younger than I am, which is shocking and obviously would be great if I was old, but I'm not. I'm 26. And this has been happening probably since I entered like late teens, early 20s. But recently, it has become even more shocking. So, okay. During my late teens, early 20s, I would get a lot of like, I would be like with my little sister who's 7 years younger than me. And a lot of people would be like, what college do you go to? Like to my younger sister, and then say like, is she going to visit you? Like about me, like being a kid. And I was like, I'm 7 years older than her. I had like a lot of people say like, how did you drive here? Did your parents drop you off? Like, do you have, how you don't have your driver's license? Stuff like that. That was just kind of like, like that's annoying, but also I kind of get it for like an older teen. Then I became like an early 20s girly, and I remember when I was engaged, and we were living in Hawaii, I remember people asking me if my ring was fake because they would say, there's no way you're old enough to be engaged. That has to be fake. And I was like, no, it's not. And still at that point, I was like, well, maybe they think I'm like 18 and that is young to be engaged. So whatever. And then we came back from Hawaii, and I remember I was at Walmart and they were giving samples of chocolate. And I went up to grab a sample, and the lady like wouldn't hand it to me. And she was like, honey, where are your parents? I can't give this to you unless they say it's okay. And I was just like, excuse me, like, even if I did look like 18 even, like, I don't need my parents' permission to eat a chocolate. So I started thinking, maybe I look even younger than that. And it just really confused me, and honestly, like, started to kind of hurt my feelings because I wanted to be like a pretty girl, and I felt that like I dressed well and I thought that I was an attractive person. And so being mistaken for someone as young that needs their parents' permission to eat chocolate started to like really like hurt my feelings. And kind of after that, things started to escalate. So Tanner and I got married when I was 21, and so many things happened since then. Like, I got kicked out of Levin Furniture for sitting on a massage chair without my ID. And they said that I wasn't allowed to sit in it unless I was 18. I didn't have my ID, so they kicked me out. They wouldn't let me swim in the pool at the Y. I took my sister there for like a little date. She was a lot younger. She was like 14. But I took her there, and they wouldn't let me swim in the pool because I didn't have my ID. I think it was in my car, and I went and got it. I remember one time I bought my mom a bottle of wine at Get-Go, and he was like, what do you think you're doing buying this? And I was like, what do you mean? At this point, I was like 24 or something. He's like, let me see your ID. So I showed him, and he said, it's obviously your older sister's ID. And I was like, no, that's me. Whenever we went to Montana with my mother-in-law, she witnessed this happen. There was a guy that was like, we were getting a table. It was like a restaurant bar scenario. And he was like, oh, all the tables are full, but obviously you can't sit at the bar. And we were like, oh, why? And he was like, well, you're a teenager. He literally said, you're a teenager. And I was like, I'm 25, so okay. And so that was like sucked. And then I'm trying to think this like literally just stuff like this happens constantly in my life. Oh, one time Tanner and I were going on a trip, and we were flying. And apparently on the flight, there was like a child flying as well by themselves. And so me and Tanner walk in, and I don't know how that works when you send a kid on a plane by themselves. But someone was like waiting for the kid, like a flight attendant. They were going to accompany them or whatever. Me and Tanner walk in, and she looks at me and goes, here she is. Dad's dropping you off for your first flight. And I was like, what? And it's just so like confusing too in the moment, because like I just don't know like what to say. And also with that, I was just like, you think this is my dad? So that was so strange. Lastly, this is the most recent thing that's been happening. And none of these are exaggerations. I took Monty with me to the Ice Fest in our town, which is basically they make ice sculptures. They're all around the town, and people walk around, and they look at the sculptures, they shop, they eat, there's coffee, all of the things. And sorry, I hate when people say all of the things. I shouldn't have said that. It feels like such an influencer cop-out for some reason. So anyways, I was with my best friend Madison, and we were walking around, and I had Monty in like the carrier that you wear them in. And she was in like a little white Sherpa snowsuit because it was winter. And literally 6 times, separate people said, "Why are you holding a baby doll?" And in different ways they would say it. So like one person said, "Why are you holding a baby doll?" One person said, "Oh my gosh, I thought that was a real baby for a minute." And then like every single one would be followed up with like, "I thought you," it became clear that every single person was saying, "I thought you were a little girl holding a baby doll." And one person directly said that. They saw Monty's face and they saw that she was real. And they said, "Oh my God, that's a real baby?" And we were like, "Yep." And they were like, "Oh, I thought you were a little girl holding a baby doll." And then someone said that exact same thing to me on a different day when I was getting a sandwich at like a local restaurant. And I was just like so confused because I'm like, how old is a child that carries around a baby doll? How old would that be? At least 10 or younger, I would say. Maybe there's some exceptions, but I kind of got to the point with the age thing where I'm like, you know what? If people think I'm 18, that's fine. But thinking that I was a little girl holding a baby doll genuinely makes me think that they thought that I was under the age of 10. And that actually hurts my feelings so much because I am 26 years old and like I like to think I'm like a confident person and I like to think that I am a decently attractive woman. And then here I find out not just one random person, like hundreds of people think that I look however old, but like a little girl. And so that has just been such a weird thing in my life because it's like, oh, well, it should be a compliment. And like, yeah, I guess it would be if I was older, you know? And I'm sure I will be very happy when I am 60 or whatever if I still look young. But it just feels so strange, especially now being a mom, the amount of people who say to me, "You're not mommy, are you?" Or like, "Oh, look at this little cutie. Where's mama?" And it's just like, I don't know. It's just such a weird feeling. So anyways, I've never told any of that stuff on the podcast, and I feel like these scenarios happen to me a lot. So I wanted to be able to like have a, I wanted to tell the full extent of how bad it is so that in the future, if I talk about it, you guys understand like how intense people are about making sure that I know that I look like a child. Okay. That is my looking young story. Now we're going to bring it all the way back to when I actually was in middle school. So when I was in middle school was when our school combined with the school that Tanner went to. That's how we met, because our schools combined. And we became one big school. We were two very small schools. We became one bigger school. So actually, I was in 8th grade, and then in 9th grade, which is when we all had high school, was my first year of having the schools combined. So at the end of 8th grade, we did something that was like supposed to have you meet. It was like a meet and greet of both schools. And we were all going to hang out with the other kids from the other school. And there's like a bunch of activities happening. And it was at the other school. It was at Tanner's school, which has since like been abandoned. It's just a giant building sitting there. But so we had this like, it was called a social at this other school. And there was all these things going on. There was like games in the gym. There was like food and snacks in like the cafeteria. There was like stuff going on outside. And then in the auditorium, there was a movie playing. And it was like dark, and it was just like the vibe of a movie theater. There's also ice cream happening, okay? But they were being very strict about not bringing the ice cream into the places where the ice cream wasn't supposed to be. So anyways, I got a milkshake, and my friends, I don't really know exactly what the situation was, but my friends were like, we're going into the movie theater. And I was like, I can't leave my friends. Like, I don't know these other people, and I'm scared. So I'm going to the movie theater, and I'm just going to sneak my milkshake and hide it. So I put it under the seat in the movie theater, and then I totally forgot about the milkshake. And whatever, I left it there. And at that point, I remembered it at some point. I was just like, who cares? And it's so funny whenever you're a kid, because like authority is so like terrifying to you, or at least to me was so scary. Like the thought of getting in trouble was like the worst of the worst. And so I don't know how long this social was. It had to have been like all day, because after a few hours, this teacher, I won't say her name, but I still remember who she was because she ended up transferring to the new school. She like came in front of everyone, and she was like holding the milkshake. And she came up, she said, she had the milkshake. She's like on a microphone or something. She's like, this milkshake was found in the auditorium, spilled under the seat. And whoever did this needs to come forward. So obviously I'm not going to come forward. I'm like, oh, sorry. Tanner has a clock that does bird calls every hour. So if you heard that, that's what it is. She's like, you need to come forward if this is your milkshake. I'm like, I'm not coming forward. You're never going to find out that it was my milkshake. And I'm not getting in trouble for this. And so she's like standing there being like, waiting, you know, the whole I'll wait thing that teachers do. She's like, whose milkshake is it? And it's like really quiet, and everyone's like looking around like, whose was it? And then she literally goes, okay, well, I'm going to have the police come down here and fingerprint the milkshake and find out whose milkshake it was. And then we're going to find you. And when I tell you that this is like at the end of the school year, basically the whole summer and then like the whole next school year, this is all I could think about. I had cold sweats for days after this, expecting the cops were going to show up at my house. And I was terrified of getting in trouble by my parents too. So I thought the cops were going to call my parents. Like, I was convinced that they fingerprinted the milkshake and found out whose it was, which that was absolutely ridiculous that she said that in the first place. I just think teachers should not like say threatening things like that, because that's like really scary for kids. And anyways, that haunted me for years as a child. I was just like, this is the scariest thing I can possibly imagine, is getting in trouble by the police. But of course it's like, okay, what were they going to do? Arrest me for spilling my milkshake? Like, because there's a sign on the door that said, don't bring your ice cream in here. But yeah, I was definitely like a very, very intense goody two shoes, rule follower, straight A's vibe, like all of school. I never got detention. I never got anything. Which is so funny because Tanner was the complete opposite. Like, he got in trouble so much with the school and the police just for being a troublemaker, and he just thought everything was funny. So yeah, that's my story of the milkshake at Laurel Valley, which still haunts me to this day and still makes me mad, honestly, that she said that. Okay, next story. 2 years ago, Tanner and I took Carol, who was on the podcast before, Tanner's mom, to Montana with us, our favorite place. That's what we named our daughter after. And we were in Glacier, which if you've been there, there's one road going through the mountains in Glacier. It's like one long road. It's called Going to the Sun Road. It's super windy, and there's like all these beautiful pull-offs where you can see views. You can go on hikes. You can just do all of these fun things. So it was like near the end of the night, and we're driving back down during sunset. We're driving back down through the park, and then we're eventually going to drive out of the park and go to our hotel. So I had my blankie in the passenger seat with me when we were driving. I have had this blankie since I was born. I sleep with it under my head every single night, and it's very important to me. It's blankie, okay? I take it everywhere. I travel with it. It's been all over the world. Blankie is life. So anyways, I had Blankie in the passenger seat with me, and we stopped and pulled over because we saw the sunset was looking really great. And Tanner and I decided to like kind of walk down into this like little field just to like see the view there. And it was getting kind of cold out. And so I had Blankie wrapped around my shoulders, and I was just vibing, you know. And then he was like, oh, let me grab a picture of you. Like with the sunset. And so I set Blankie down on a rock, and then I don't know what happened. Like the sun was like moving, and we like ended up like running into like this other spot. Anyways, I forgot Blankie on this rock, and the way that the road is, like, it's so windy and so small, and it's like on the edge of these mountains. And so it's like probably 25 miles into the park that I left Blankie, but because it's so windy and steep and all of this stuff, like it's like a 2-hour drive from like the bottom of like where you stay, basically the town. So we get back to the hotel, and I'm like getting ready for bed, and my heart just drops into my stomach, and I just immediately, like, it wasn't even like, oh, where is it? Let me look around. I was like, I left Blankie on that rock. And we're with Tanner's mom, and I did not expect myself to react this way, but I just started absolutely sobbing. And I think that a lot of the reason why I was so upset was just because, like, yes, I could buy another blanket that was like, you know, the same feeling, like the same material and stuff, but I can never replace, like, Blankie has been there with me through everything. Like, Blankie had blood on it from my birth. Blankie has been there for Blankie was there whenever I had my endo surgery, like everything. Moving to college, like I could not stop sobbing because I was just like, oh, sorry, I forgot to add. We had our flight the next morning, like early. And it was going to be like 4 hours round trip to go get Blankie. And it was pitch black at this point. And Tanner's like, I'll go get Blankie. And I was like, no, because like you don't know where it was. I know where it was. And also, like, there's bears. And we like had hiked like kind of far down into like this little fieldy area, and there was there's animals at night. And so like I just could not stop sobbing. Like, I don't know what came over me. Like, I felt so stupid in front of Tanner's mom because I was just like, I know that this seems so dumb. And of course she was so sweet about it. And she's like, I know, honey, like that can be really hard, like whatever. And Tanner was just like, I'll go get Blankie. So it's going to be like 4 hours round trip to go get Blankie. And it's like so dark at this point. And there's like bears and animals and stuff that's obviously like in the park. And I just like could not stop sobbing. It was so weirdly emotional. And I was just like, I am going to die. And I forgot to add our flight is the next morning. And so Tanner and I were both just like, let's just try to sleep. And then we'll go in the morning at like 4 a.m. and go find Blanky. So I barely slept because I was like silently sobbing in bed. Like I could not get myself together. It was just like so sad. And I just kept thinking like, at that point, then I started like spiraling and, doing the thing where like I convinced myself that Blanky has feelings and that she's like, why did you leave me here? And then I'm picturing like a bear coming up and like smelling it and like taking it somewhere. And I was just dying of sadness. So anyways, we go at like 4 and we drive all the way up in the dark. Then we take our bear spray, we take our headlamps, we go hike down into where it was, and then we found Blanky. Thank God. And yeah, that's the story of when Blanky slept overnight in Glacier National Park, which honestly is funny now that we named our daughter Montana. It just makes me laugh. Okay. I gotta hurry up. So, okay. We used to live in kind of a sketchy area. Ashley and I did an episode on it called Our House Got Broken Into. So on that episode, I completely forgot to tell this story, which is so dumb of me. But I just have to tell it because this is crazy. So we lived in kind of a sketchy area, but then beside the area that we lived was another town that was even worse. Like it was very, very scary there. And Tanner has a motorcycle, and it's like an older motorcycle, and it's just for fun. He doesn't take it like anywhere far. It's more so just for like back roads, good vibes. So anyways, he was trying to go to Kennywood from where we lived, and he was going to take his motorcycle. And it was only like 3 miles total maybe. But so that's why he was like, oh, I'm just going to take the motorcycle. It's such a nice day out. And he was driving and, oh, sorry, I should add that the motorcycle stalls out a lot because it's old. And so he was driving the motorcycle to Kennywood, and you have to go through like the really scary area to get there. And of course, it stalls out right in like the really bad area. And so he said it stalled out. He's like kind of on the side of the road, and he sees this guy like across the way, and the guy's like looking at him, and he's like looking at him. And he said that the guy seemed like he was like on drugs or something, like he was not acting super normal. And he was just trying to get his motorcycle to start, giving it a minute or two. And the guy across the street is like watching to like make sure the cars, that there's no cars coming by. And then he starts running at Tanner and pulls out a screwdriver. He's about to stab him with a screwdriver. And Tanner was like, I didn't know what to do. And he said that the guy was like definitely like out of it and like on drugs. And he also said that he was like really skinny and just like, I guess like easy to take. So Tanner just punches him and then throws him into a bush and then starts the motorcycle back up. It starts again and just drives away. And then he said when he passed back, the guy wasn't there, and that was that. But it's just so funny because like it's so funny because I remember shooting a wedding that day, and I just for some reason he wasn't answering his phone. Oh, his phone was dead during this too, of course. He wasn't answering his phone, and I told my second shooter, I was like, I just have like a weird feeling that like something bad happened to him. But obviously, like if you're married, you know that you convince yourself that your husband dies all the time. So I was like, it's probably fine. Then he calls me. He's like, yeah, I beat someone up. They tried to stab me with a screwdriver and my motorcycle broke down. I'm like, okay. So anyways, that's a little story on that I forgot to add in the other episode. This one isn't really a story because it's just kind of a random thing about my life. So whenever I was in 7th grade, lice was going around. And for some reason, so my sister, she has really, really beautiful thick hair. I don't know where she got it from. I am not blessed with thick hair at all. My hair is extremely thin and never grows. So I want to say that she is the culprit of why this happened. But like, I swear we had lice probably 5 to 7 times. Like, we would think we were clear of it, and a week would go by, and then we would find another evidence of the lice. And when you're in middle school or high school even, like, the thought of having lice is just like the most humiliating thing on earth. And I had to miss a bunch of school, and like, it was just like, it's at that time whenever like your friends and you are constantly talking about everything, and my friends kept being like, why are you missing school so much? And I was like, I was sick. And I remember at one point, like, my one friend said, like, oh, I heard this person had lice. And I was like, oh my God, what? Ew, that's disgusting. And like, I would never admit that I had lice. Eventually, we finally got it to go away. Obviously, I don't have lice today, everyone. But I am not kidding you. I kept that secret that I had lice for probably 15 years. It's been like within the past few years that I have admitted that I had lice before. And for some reason, I remember being like, I'm taking this to my grave. No one will ever know that I had lice. And yeah, it was just so funny that I was like so adamant about no one ever knowing that I had lice before, when it's actually so normal, and probably everyone and every family ever has had it. And actually, someone told me that there's a secret place in the area, in the Pittsburgh area, that charges a lot of money, and it's kind of like an underground operation, but you go and it's like the lice are gone. Like, they get it all out. I don't know if they like de-lice your home, but it's like that day you go in, you pay, they get the lice gone from your heads. And if we could have done that in the old days, in the days when I was in 7th grade, I would have done it in a heartbeat. Here's the other thing that sucks, is that you had to go to the doctor to get the prescription like lice removal shampoo, or at least we did. So we had to do that like 15 freaking times, and it was so annoying and so embarrassing. And I was like, I have lice. Okay. Next story is, I have 2 more. Okay. I'm going to save the most interesting one for last. The most interesting of the next 2. So this one is not about me. This is about my dad. So my dad is the calmest man on the planet. He moves at the rate of a sloth in everything he does. And he's the kindest person. He's so sweet, soft-spoken, quiet. You can ask him, Ned, how's your day? And this will be his response. Okay, you're like, Ned, how's your day? It was good. He takes that long to respond because he just thinks about what he's saying. He's also just like very matter of fact. I don't know. He's literally, I've never seen him like, if he has a spare moment that he's not doing anything, he will just be looking. He's not on his phone. He's not looking at the TV. He just sits there and looks. He'll look outside. He'll just look straight ahead. For hours, he'll do that. I'm not kidding. And I'm always like, Dad, what are you thinking about? And he'll always have something that he's thinking about. Like, he'll be like, oh, I was thinking about this one time when I was a kid, or when you were a kid, or like some deep philosophical thing. He's just such a certain type of person. So anyways, he is so funny. And backtracking is that my parents live in the middle of nowhere. They live on this like dirt road that goes up a mountain, and they live on the top, and they have a bunch of property, and they live in a cabin, and it's good vibes. Okay. So my dad wanted to live there because he doesn't want to be around anyone, doesn't want to hear anyone. He wants peace and quiet. So unfortunately, there is a piece of property on the road that is pretty far from my parents' house, but you have to pass by it to get to their house. Sorry, my throat is getting dry from so much talking. You have to pass by their property to get to my parents' house. And these people who bought this property, they seem nice. Okay, I've met them. And if they're listening, I don't even care. They thought that they were going to start like this homestead on this property. And like, unfortunately, it's like in the middle of the woods. And they just like got all these farm animals. And like, they have trash literally everywhere. And they have a ton of kids. Their kids like trash and toys and stuff is always on the road. This road was like a beautiful mountain dirt path. And then now it looks like literal trash. People live here. There's like old tires everywhere, like old couches out on the road. Like everything is just horrible. And then they have all these animals, and they're like fenced in like this muddy forest, and it's like farm animals. And it's so sad, and the animals are so skinny. And in the winter time, like they are never around. The people are never around. They don't even live on this property. They just like put all their stuff there and dropped all these animals off, and then they come like every few days, I guess, and like feed them. But like my dad would go down there and like be walking and like see that the animals had no water, or like that their water was frozen, or that they didn't have any food and stuff. And so there's been like so many times that he would bring them water. There's dogs, like chickens, cows, goats, like so many, a mini horse. And he would like bring them water because he was like, and they would be so thirsty, and it was so sad. And then there's like another house kind of near there, and they said like the animals would be crying all night, and like it was so sad. So I just like do not put up with that stuff. And I had seen firsthand clearly what was going on, and so I had called animal control services or whatever a few times last year, and they get your statement or whatever. And then I never really knew what came of it. But then this is trigger warning about animals dying. Their mini horse was strangled in their fence because it was trying to get out to get to water, and it died. And another one of their animals died because it wasn't fenced in, and I think it got hit or something. And I was just like, this is not okay. So me and my sister both called animal control again, and we were like, listen, here's the address, like please go look at what they're doing here. Like it is inhumane. So the animal people went apparently, and then the guy who owns the animals texts my dad. He like texts him this huge long message. He's like, animal control services came here. Like this isn't like the first time that they've come. Like I know that you guys have been reporting us. Like our animals are completely safe. Like you don't know what you're talking about. Sends him like all this like accusatory stuff. And of course it was me that called. It wasn't my dad. But I never told my dad that I called. And he just responds, my dad, this huge long message. My dad just responds, so matter of fact, It was not us, period. We are in Maine, period. That's it. And then the guy never responds. And me and Tanner laugh about that constantly. It is not us. We are in Maine. Like, as if it couldn't have happened, because my parents were on vacation in Maine at the time. And it's so funny because my dad, in his brain, he's like, it couldn't have happened before. Like, I couldn't have called. I'm in Maine. How would I have seen that? And it's like, it's just so funny. He is such a character in his own way. Okay, here's my last story, and then I have a few questions to answer. I'm going to wrap this up. So, last story is when Tanner and I lived in Hawaii, I'm going to make this quick. We lived in Hawaii. We did the Stairway to Heaven hike. Okay, it's illegal. It's very hard. If you don't know what it is, look it up. I got food poisoning before we went on the hike, and I was extremely ill the whole time, and I pooped my pants and puked everywhere. And I pooped on Tanner. I puked on him. Whatever. It is what it is. I did the whole hike, by the way. So anyways, I, in 2020, made a TikTok about the fact that it sounds like someone just arrived at my house. Oh, I bet it's the mailman. In 2020, I made a TikTok about that, and I just like explained the situation, and it was funny. So, and it blew up. It got like a bunch of views, whatever. So like soon after that, this recruiter for reality TV reached out to me, and she's like, hey, we're making a show called, I don't remember what it was called, but it was basically like these crazy stories, and then like they would have like actors reenact it, but you would like be telling the story in the background. And she's like, yeah, so we're making, sorry if you can hear a lawnmower, we're making this show, and like we want your story to be on it. Like, can we schedule like a Zoom audition for you, basically? And I'm like, sure, I'll be on the show. And so I call with this producer. I remember I was on vacation with my parents, and he's like, okay, tell me the story. And I told him, and he's like, oh my God, I love it so much, I'm eating it up. And I was like, okay, cool. So he's like, okay, I'm gonna schedule you another audition with a different like I'm gonna add on some more producers. And so I had to do another interview on Zoom once I got home, and it was like this whole thing. I just had to keep retelling the story over and over again. And it's funny because like it was in 2020, so that's why everything was Zoom, but like they would kind of prompt me to say stuff. Like they'd be like, okay, but say it more like this. Like they'd be like, okay, but start over again and say it as if this or whatever. Like they would like really like kind of prompt what I was saying. And then they wanted Tanner to do an interview. So he did an interview, and then they wanted me to do another one, and then I think we did one together. And each time that we were interviewing, it got more and more like they wanted us to like create this different narrative. And then like at one point I think they said like, I don't know, like the producers want us to spin it a different way. And we're like, okay, like at this point we're just like, we don't really care about this. Like this is like taking a lot of our time, and like I don't really care. But also I was like, it would be cool. Like, so anyways, we get to like these like final interviews, the final ones that we did, and they wanted to take the story in a way that like, so Tanner and I were engaged when this happened, and like they wanted us to basically say like we were having a really hard time in our relationship, and we didn't know if we wanted to get married. And then after this like whole situation happened, we like knew that like the other one was the one. And so I remember like them saying like, well, what was he doing at the time that made you unsure of your relationship? And I was just like, I was sure, we were engaged. And they were like, they were so like prodding me so much. They're just like, well, I'm sure there was something that he did that you didn't like. And I was like, And also, I'm extremely passionate about not speaking badly about my husband, not because not because I'm hiding anything. Like, he truly is like almost a perfect person. But like, even if there is something that is wrong, like, I'm never going to speak badly of him. And if I do need to talk to someone, it's going to be like a close, trusted friend. I would never just like talk badly about him to people in general, complain about him, especially not on TV. And so they kept saying like, well, wasn't there one thing that made you like think like maybe it wasn't right? And I was like, I kept saying, I don't want to say that. And he said like, you need to say that he was a slob. And I was like, I really don't want to say that. And he kept saying, if you don't say he's a slob, then there's no story. And he like really like honed in on this, like him being a slob. And I was just like, okay, like, I just don't want to say that. And he's like, well, then you're off the show. And I was like, cool. I don't care. Like, I never even asked to be on the show in the first place. And so anyways, never heard from them again, but it was just so eye-opening as to like how reality TV is and like how much they do like prompt you. Don't get me wrong, I still love reality TV. But especially if you're drinking like they are on a lot of these shows, just seeing the way that they like egg you on to say certain things, I get how things can definitely be twisted on TV. But that was just a very interesting experience for me, doing those interviews. That was a new scenario, and yeah, really opened my eyes. Okay. Last but not least, I'm just going to see if there are any questions. We put up on our Instagram some question boxes about like for each of us, because Ashley is going to be doing a solo episode as well. So I'm going to see if anyone asks me any good questions. Oh, there's a lot. Okay. What's your favorite pod to listen to? The Bad Broadcast, What We Said. Those are both very similar to our podcast. Girl Talk, easy listening. In terms of health and wellness, I listen to the Wise Traditions podcast. I like the Battle Ready podcast. That's like more faith and spirituality. I listen to a lot of sermons on there. I listen to the Flourish podcast. That is Tanner's best friend's mom's podcast, and she talks a lot about parenting and faith in general. And I love her. Sorry, there's like the mail truck outside. Those are my favorite podcasts. Most shocking thing about pregnancy. I didn't have any of the normal symptoms. I just had restless leg syndrome extremely badly, and it literally wrecked me. I have a lot of fear about that happening with my next pregnancy. Yeah. This person says, how are you so chill? Please lend me some chill. That's because of my dad. But I also do get anxious a lot, but I think my demeanor maybe is just more chill, because people tell me that a lot, especially like wedding clients say that I'm very calm, which again, sometimes it doesn't feel like that inside, but I think maybe just, yeah, my demeanor is more calm. Favorite part of being a mom? Literally, there's nothing better. Every single day is my favorite part of being a mom. But I think the moments when you realize that your baby is like connecting with you in like a real human way. Like sometimes like she'll just be looking at me, I'll look at her and I'll go, eh. And she goes, eh. And then we'll both go, eh, eh, eh. And then her smile will just get bigger and bigger, and then we both laugh. And we're laughing together, and I'm like, holy moly, like we are understanding each other. We're having a human interaction that is just like, it's so sweet. So that is just the best, but like truly everything everything about being a mom is amazing. And I'm so passionate about having a family. And I think it's the most beautiful thing you can do. And if you are on the fence about it, if you're scared, a lot of people message me that and say that they're scared to become a mom. And it is scary, but it's nothing will ever beat it. So everything. What's something you bought for Monty that you realized was not even remotely needed? Oh man. So much stuff. The really pretty Charlie Crane rocker, which mine is for sale if anyone would like it. It is really pretty, but I never used it. Any cute clothes, like before, like now, basically. Headbands, bows for their head. When they're so small, like, just put them in a footie. It's fine. You don't need to dress them all up all the time. They don't want that. I feel like I did a pretty good job of not buying a lot. There's actually a lot of stuff I need to buy because I was a little too minimalist, I think. Okay, last question I'm going to answer. Favorite place to travel to? I'm going to have to say Montana. It's just unbeatable. If you've been there, you get it. The vibes are immaculate. Tanner and I love the camping vibe. Cold mornings, wearing a beanie, having a hot coffee, sitting by a campfire, the smell of smoke, like campfire smoke, having a sandwich for lunch, going on a hike at sunrise. That's my vibe. That's our forever. That's who we are. And Montana is the best place, but anywhere where those vibes are happening, Colorado, Northern California, Oregon, Washington, love those places. Honestly, I'm an American girly, so I do like international travel, but my heart is here in America. So yeah, that is the end of the podcast. If you guys are still here, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed my stories. I want to say thank you to everyone who is a faithful listener. I also wanted to say we are almost so close to our merch release. And I can't wait for you guys to see what we have been working on. I think it's so cute. And by the time this is released, we might be super close. So I wanted to say keep an eye out for merch. And yeah, if you guys want to participate in any user submitted stories, our Instagram is the best place to follow us at Let's Debrief Pod. We are on all social media, not Twitter or Facebook, but we have TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you're probably on Spotify or Apple, but yeah, follow us, like and subscribe, write us a review, give us 5 stars. I know that probably every person you listen to on YouTube or on whatever podcast, whatever it is, says that. But literally that is how we can become an actual podcast, is if you give us attention. Give us a rating and review. It would really mean a lot to us.